What Riyadh season is doing and Ring, which was purchased by Turkey, must improve. In this video, I'm going to break down my gripe with what I'm seeing in today's boxing. Stay tuned to the end of this video. Let's run it. Now, there are a lot of people who, in this day and age, in a game that I pioneered, talking boxing in the digital space. Before, there weren't, like, YouTubers didn't get respect in boxing when I first started, because we're talking about over 12 years ago when I pioneered this game. You still had magazines, you still had more deadline writers. Now you look at Boxing Ego, I've always raised the bar in my quality. I've never had to answer to anyone. On my channel, I curate the content. I talk about what I want to talk about versus you see like standard deadline writers for a website. Some people were with ESPN or CBS or Yahoo or whatever, different websites, The Athletic. Then these jobs downsize, furloughed people, etc. Meanwhile, I've been here because I knew the future of this boxing game is digital mob, right? So I've been in the game, whether you like it or not. I pioneered this game. These are the facts. So the problem I'm seeing, and we'll get into that right now, is frankly, there's too many like open-ended, unresolved rumors in boxing, most of which are coming from Riyadh season. Mark this video down, mark these tweets down. I said, unpopular opinion. All of these public negotiations, telling the public your ideas prematurely and pre-planning that Riyadh season is doing is a bad look for boxing. The business of boxing don't even work like that. This is such a rookie move, and you will see in due time. I've been in boxing too long, so you mean to tell me nobody is going to fail a drug test, refuse a VADA test, disagree on deal points, get injured in training camp, get sick, can't get a visa or passport. No fighter will get upset in their match or have their stock drop in interim fights. Maybe even just change their mind, or any litany of things that happen in this sport which could compromise a boxing match in the future. Do you guys remember when Mike Tyson had a medical emergency last year and his summer fight with Jake Paul, after they already did a press conference, got pushed back to the end of the year? Because I distinctly remember it was like Netflix first foray into boxing, Jake Paul, and some of the fights got changed. Like Floyd Schofield was supposed to fight Ashton Sylvie, H2O, a Jake Paul fighter. And guess what? He got knocked out by Lucas Body, and he got bodied, right? You had Schofield, who dropped off the card after that. You had Darren Till was supposed to fight Julio Cesar Chavez Jr. That fight fell apart, and they moved the whole card. So you see, this is boxing. You can't control, unless you're fixing fights or something like illegal, you can't really control all the movement that happens, right? Mike Tyson, no one could predict. Hi, it's me, Mike Tyson. I'm the best ever. There's nobody that can match me. My style is impetuous. I'm just ferocious. I want it hard. I want it. No one knew he was going to have a medical emergency, causing Netflix and Jake Paul to push the card back. So I continue by saying 2025 will be an amazing year for me, my brand, Boxing Ego. I cannot wait. Bookmark this tweet. I firmly believe everything I said. So the problem is, and I like to put things in perspective, because when I say things, a lot of people just They know me for telling the truth and keeping it all the way funky. But the resistance, they want to disagree and refute it, but they can't. So I like to put it in a way that you can visually see what I'm talking about. So I composed a list on my Twitter account. These, just so you have an idea of what I'm talking about, if it didn't already make sense for you, so you could visualize. These are unconfirmed Riyadh season fights at the moment. So all fights that have some level of like reporting, people saying the fights are done, but we do not have an actual confirmation, dates, venues, tickets on sale, what platform, what's the time it airs, etc. So unconfirmed. And these are just Riyadh season fights. You have Canelo Crawford at 168. Ryan Garcia versus Aesop Pitbull Cruz if Pitbull wins on a PBC Benavidez Morel card. Ryan Garcia versus Devin Haney, they said it's a trilogy now, 2 and 3, if they win interim belts, which could be for Ryan Pitbull Cruz, for Devin Jose Ramirez, which I put. So Devin Haney has to beat Jose Ramirez. These are the rumors. These are the unconfirmed fights. They said they wanted Anthony Joshua versus Tyson Fury if Tyson Fury isn't really retired. And if he is, Turkey said he wants Wilder versus Anthony Joshua, but BLK Prime says they have a fight with Wilder and Curtis Harper. Do you see the problem here? So out of these fights that I've named, Ryan would have to beat Pitbull to get to Haney. Devin would have to beat Jose Ramirez to get to the Ryan rematch. Joshua can fight Fury, but Fury said he was retired. Wilder and AJ, they're saying they want this fight, but Wilder has a scheduled fight for BLK Prime. So what if he just took 2 losses in a row? What if Wilder somehow got upset by Curtis Harper? This is bad for boxing. Let's keep going. Shakur Stevenson versus William Zepeda. But Shakur has a fight with Floyd Schofield. But they already told you that they want to match Shakur Zepeda still. And then I've heard even rumors, which I forgot to add, of Zepeda Tevin Farmer Part 2. Then the Riyadh rumors and Ring is saying we want Teofimo versus Jerron Boots Ennis. But then they're also saying they want Teofimo versus Richardson Hitchens. So that means Teo would have to get past Richardson Hitchens, a champion, which that's not a give me fight. Like, oh, he's just assumed to get through it. Even if you favor Teo, we've seen Teo look bad versus Sandor Martin and arguably lose. We've seen Teo lose to someone like George Kambosos, who, you know, people didn't expect to beat him. So the other one is Jerron Boots Ennis Stanionis. People are like, oh, yeah, the fight's happening. Jai Opataya, Gilberto Zurdo Ramirez, Jai Opataya. I've even heard people say, oh, Alexander Usyk's going to drop down. He's already undisputed. He already did that. And he can't make heavyweight without a struggle. So he might drop down to fight Opataya. But they also said Zurdo Ramirez. Then they're talking about a Matchroom versus Golden Boy 5v5, Martin Bacoli versus F.A. Ajagba. And they're also saying that Naoya Inoue has the partnership with Turkey in Riyadh season, and they want to have him on a card in 2025. So again, I said, you don't see the problem with this, LOL. We don't need to know. Just make the fights if you can. That is some of them. I didn't even include Tevin Farmer and William Zepeda. Now you can understand what the problem is now that I've highlighted it for you. This is not good for boxing. Yes, it's cool conversation if you have no life and you want to sit around and gossip about boxing, but true boxing fans don't care. We don't want to be led astray thinking Crawford is going to get the Canelo fight, and if you're excited for the fight, something could happen, and then the fight doesn't happen in September. So for me, all of this stuff is hurtful for boxing, and you really have to let certain things play out before you announce it. Boxing is not the type of sport you can plan 15 months out, 18 months out. There's fighters where, like Jermall Charlo, he was looking very hard to beat, but then he had the Montiel fight, and then he disappeared for like several years. Nobody would have predicted that. Or Ryan Garcia struggles with Luke Campbell, but then he's good enough to initially beat Devin Haney. Or he pulled out of the Fortuna fight because he had anxiety. Like, you can't predict all of these things. So for me, Turkey bought Ring Magazine, and just putting out all this mumbo jumbo is a terrible look for the sport of boxing, because they seem to be the main culprits in doing it. Eddie Hearn does it, DAZN does it, Golden Boy does it, and now Riyadh season. So you're floating all these public negotiations out there and saying, hey, we hope to make T.O. versus Boots, but T.O. got to get through this. T.O. might not be good enough to get to Boots if he has to fight Richardson Hitchens. That's why you have to let the fights play out. So you got people like, oh, Turkey took over boxing and this is amazing. Listen, I have no problem if you get the fights done. That's not an issue. The issue is playing with people's emotions and playing with the fans' feelings and floating these ideas out, getting people hyped for Ryan and Devin. Devin took a nasty spill versus Ryan in their first fight. So to get to the second and third Ryan and Devin fight, they're doing interim bouts, which you should just go straight into it, because at least whatever is going to be in the second fight is going to be. But when you start putting in obstacles and interim bouts, you don't know how that's going to play out, right? And then the best you can do outside of illegal stuff like fixing the fight is give somebody a cupcake. But does that really build? If you give someone so soft of an opponent that no fans really want to see it, then it's kind of a waste of everybody's time. You dig? You know, so it's just too many of this things. And then you have content creators. I tell you, a lot of low quality content available in this space now, where all of these little nuanced fights, unconfirmed, in order to try to make money or clicks or views, you have people trying to abuse that and hype people up for fights that may or may not happen, or only will happen if certain other things happen in boxing, which is highly volatile, and it's very hard to predict what is going to be either way. Like, why are we talking T.O. Boots, and then T.O. you want to put Richardson Hitchens? So are we going to disrespect Richardson Hitchens? Are we going to disrespect the fact that Pitbull Cruz, you could have Ryan as the favorite, but what if he clipped Ryan? What if Jose Ramirez fought and all of a sudden looked good and Devin looks bad since the Ryan fight? That's why it's better to let things play out, negotiate behind the scenes like PBC does. I did a video about it. Gary Antoine Russell's fighting against El Rayo, and it's not all this floating the ideas around from PBC. They're not the ones doing it. You don't go to PBC's Instagram and they're like, hey, we're working on this, stay tuned. They usually won't say nothing until the ink is already dried. And to me, this is a major problem in boxing, because you have people in the comment section and they're highly confused. Like, hey, I thought Ryan was fighting Pitbull, but what if something happened? I thought we were getting a trilogy with Haney Garcia. What if something happens? I'm telling you, mark this video down. This is going to be bad, because boxing doesn't work like this, where you could just forecast everything and float 50 ideas. Not all 50. Again, people fail drug tests. How do you know if somebody's using and they pop dirty? So if a person fails a drug test and you were announcing a fight, all that other out the window. Like Joshua Gerald Big Baby Miller. That was an announced fight. Gone. They're like, DAZN, we got this new deal. Joshua's fighting Gerald Miller. Then you put that fight on. You did a DAZN New York presser. Joshua ended up not fighting Gerald Miller for obvious reasons, failed a banned substance test. And then they brought in Andy Ruiz. Rest is history. Joshua loses the first Ruiz fight, right? I'm telling you how this game works. And then you got fanboys and haters of my channel in the resistance, and they're like, Nah, man, ego lying. Turkey took over boxing. He's scared. I'm a content creator. The more boxing you give me, the more money I'm going to make because I'm going to make content on it. I'm not scared of any of these promoters doing right for boxing. However, this floating all your ideas to the public is not good for boxing, which is why I'm making this video. Because also, when you put the business out there when it's not even ready, you give others the opportunity to opine on your business. Like, hey, I don't like T.O. versus Boots. That's a stupid fight. I want to see T.O. versus this guy. Devin and T.O. need to fight. And then now you have fanagers like disagreeing. Some people like the fight. Or what if one of these fighters had a barber or something, and then they hear the rumor and they get in the person's ear like, yeah, don't fight that guy. They trying to get over on you, or don't take that type of money. You open the floodgate. When you work behind the scenes and just wait until the fight is signed, there's a lot less that can go wrong, because at best something pops up and you didn't hype the person up. Riyadh season is talking about if this fighter beats this fighter and this fighter beats this fighter, that's two separate matches, then they fight each other. Because, like, for example, on Riyadh season owned Ring TV, they said Turkey wants to make a fight between, let me pull it up. I think that's the best way. So it could be fair. And the funny thing is, people are like, oh, Ego, you hating. But I always let you know where I'm coming from and why I stand there, right? So boom. This is Turkey on Ring, which is owned by Turkey, right? Turkey Al-Sheikh wants Garcia versus Haney 2 and T.O. versus Boots. Then the winners meet. The problem with this is they're saying that T.O. could fight Richardson Hitchens and Boots could fight Amantis Stanionis and Garcia could fight Pitbull Cruz and Devin Haney could fight Jose Ramirez. So how many fights is that? Ryan Pitbull, 1. Devin Jose Ramirez, 2. T.O. versus Richardson Hitchens, 3. And then Jaron Ennis, they're rumoring him to fight Stanionis. So that's 4 fights to even get to these fights where the winners would meet. What if Pitbull knocked out Devin Haney? I'm saying hypothetically. Pitbull knocked out Devin Haney, and what if Jose Ramirez Pitbull knocked out Ryan and Devin Haney lost to Jose Ramirez? What are you going to do, Pitbull and Jose Ramirez? And then fight the winner of T.O. and Boots, which I believe would be Boots. So then you're going to have Boots and Ramirez or Boots and Pitbull. It doesn't even make sense. And you guys are falling for it. I try to tell you, but mark this video down. Bookmark it. I've been in boxing. I know how this stuff works. Holla at me in a few months. We'll see how many of these fights actually come out and happen. And we'll see if there's any upsets or pullouts. You better hope and pray that Boxing Ego is wrong. Nobody popped dirty. Nobody disagreed in negotiations. Nobody changed their mind. Nobody can't get a passport. And every single one of these fights happen. Peace.